Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, or whatever time zone it is with you in the world. It is your Lore and Saviour. And a few days ago, sometime last week, I proposed a question on a Call of Cthulhu Facebook group. Because I'm slowly trying to get into that, and I was trying to get a read what the fan base is like, or some of it at least, and trying to work out what the different settings were and what people's opinions were on them. Because I was aware there was a Dark Ages one, there's a Roman-based one called Cthulhu Invictus, Invictus Cthulhu, there's a Victorian era piece, etc. and so forth. But I was just trying to see what people liked. Now, from what I read, most people were very keen on the 1920s default setting, the time of Lovecraft himself. A very specific part of America, right? And there are some people that really enjoyed the Victorian age, because it's just a bit before, and there's also a fair amount of people who like the modern stuff. However, that's not what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about the fair few amount of people who had the very fucking weird comment, or at least I believe it's very weird, when they said that setting doesn't matter. It's the story that's important, which, on the one hand, I understand, because the setting is ultimately what you make of it, especially in a more fantasy-orientated session and gameplay, like, I don't know, like D&D, where you make the setting what it is. But there's also a lot of fucking bullshit about that, and allow me to waffle away as to why I think that is. To say that setting isn't important is a load of balderdash, in my opinion, because it dictates so much what you can and can't do, what you can think and feel, what would be socially acceptable, etc. and so forth. Like, just to go back with vampire, to stick on brand for just a moment. The Dark Ages vampire setting was very different. Like, the concept of the Masquerade was just not so much like trying to blend in with the mortars, but more like common sense, not letting your whole vampire show, or rather, not get caught doing it. Sure, not getting caught and letting people aware of it being a vampire is part of those traditions, but things have changed and developed over the periods of times, like Camarilla and the sects and factions and whatnot wasn't really so much of a thing either. Like, move out to the Victorian age vampire. Like, we lean more into the gothic elements, the Sabbat are far more monstrous than they have been, leaning into some of those older tropes and ideas just to control the mortals and scare the fucking shit out of them that way. With Call of Cthulhu, if we use its fucking default setting in 1920 America, the way that sanity is lost in that game, and also with more modern settings, because Call of Cthulhu 7th edition does allow for both modes of setting-based play, I guess, is very different to how one would lose sanity in the Dark Ages setting for it. Like, those of the Dark Ages would not lose sanity just because they saw a dead body, because it's just rife everywhere. Sanity lost in that game is more like having your questioning your faith and understanding of some description of the world around you. And obviously seeing dead, mangled corpses in like 1920 America and beyond, and actually a bit before then if you think about it, it's just so commonplace. It's not so commonplace, I should say. So to say that setting doesn't matter, just on those elements alone, is really bizarre. And again, like, yes, the story that you create with your players and games master is ultimately the most important thing here, because things can be inspired by a particular setting and you can be as, like, historically accurate as much or as little as you want. But again, the stories that you tell is very dependent on that setting. As I said, with a fantasy setting, magic and elves and dwarves and things are going to be more likely than 1960s Detroit. Like, unless, of course, you do some weird, I don't know, like, bring those elements in somehow and then just make some weird, wacky homebrew world, or you've got a game system that has that sort of direction, but the setting will dictate a lot of your play, and it will encourage the game master, and by chance the players, to come up with certain characters that fit those certain themes. Like, I don't know, like a high elf sort of thing's not going to fit with that Chicago example. Like, I could just keep going around like this, but at this point I'm just like wasting like air, because what? There's also just a matter of tone, really, just to have things like some degree of consistency. Like, sure, people are going to laugh and joke about because funny moments and whatnot, and like break character just for our own levels of sanity. But to say that its setting doesn't matter, I can only assume that the person who would say that is a player that's only had to like insert their particular narrative into the overall scheme of what everybody else is doing and the games master in question. Or it's a sort of games master that's really never cared for that level of accuracy and just goes and does whatever the fuck they want, which, fair enough, right? I'll salute to that, right? That's pretty cool, but setting does matter. It helps with the world building, it helps establish the characters and how they fit into everything, and how the world will revolve around them to an extent, how NPCs will move in and about certain things. And like there are like TTRPGs and settings that really do encourage this sort of creativity. You know, to a tiny extent Dungeons and Dragons, to a much larger extent Fabula Ultima, which I'm only mentioning because I've been reading that quite a bit recently. A TTRPG inspired by countless of JRPGs, where you and the players sit together and conjure up your own world. Ironsworn is another one, both of them, Ironsworn and Ironsworn Starforged. The former has a Viking sort of vibe, the latter's got like a sci-fi sort of vibe, and you create your own worlds and your cultures and peoples together, and with those games you kind of do it on the fly. Fabula Ultima, you like sit around on session 0 and just work things out together. And again, most players will do that with their games master during a session 0 anyway. So just to have some degree of like consistency with everything, and as the world expands, you expand with it, and you know, vice versa. The setting doesn't matter. What a load of shit. But that's just my opinion, of course, because I am only one guy, your Lore and Saviour. So do enlighten me. What are your thoughts about setting? Does it matter or does it not matter? Let me know in the comments below and enlighten me with these different takes and help me to expand my own mind as a games master, so I can improve the gaming experiences of my friends and whatever you delightful chuckle fucks I may run game for in the future and beyond. And if you like the sort of shit that I do, consider liking and subscribing to the Lore by Night channel for lovely little rants like this, and also loads of World of Darkness lore, character creation guides, book reviews and other related rants and etc. and so forth. And whilst you're down there, you can check out the various books in the description below, where you can purchase a whole host of books including your games to make settings of your own magical creations. And if you use those specific links, I get some of the money back because I'm an affiliate on TTRPGs. And it helps to financially support the channel so I can provide more interesting lore dives and run more cool games for you lucky bastards. And you know, none of those are particularly cheap, so any and everything that you can do help to support me financially would be greatly appreciated. But if not, I can understand that, you know, because as I said, shit's pretty expensive. So like, share, subscribe with any and all who would love what I do, and I'll see you on the next upload, whatever that may well be for you. Until next time, farewell.